All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive. Today, we're all about the Paulownia tree,
Ah, the
a
Paulownia.
species that's got people talking,
Yeah.
with all its potential for timber, biomass, maybe even carbon capture.
Interesting stuff.
We've got a good mix of sources today.
Okay.
2 project proposals that are all about Paulownia plantations,
Mm-hmm.
and then a research report
All right.
taking a look at how we can grow this tree in the Netherlands.
Sounds good.
So, big question
Yeah.
is this fast-growing tree like the answer to
Oh,
some of our,
big problems.
the big problems we're facing?
Yeah, sure.
Only one way to find out.
Let's dive in.
Let's do it. So first things first,
Yeah.
Paulownia. It's famous for how crazy fast it grows.
It's true. The growth rate is incredible.
Right.
You're talking about a tree that can shoot up 3 meters in height
Whoa.
and 9 centimeters in diameter in just its first year.
Seriously. 3 meters in a year.
It's like something out of a fairy tale.
I can't even picture that as like a beanstalk or something.
Exactly. And within a decade, you can have a really impressive sized tree.
That's amazing, but there's got to be a catch.
Of course, there's always a catch.
Right.
To get that kind of growth, Paulownia needs things to be just right.
Okay, so it's not just like plant it anywhere and watch it go wild.
Not quite.
All right, so what's the secret formula then? What kind of soil, what kind of climate does this tree need to be happy?
Well, you know Goldilocks. It's kind of like that, but for trees.
I like that, the Goldilocks zone for trees.
Yeah, so this Paulownia plantage business plan we have, it lays it all out.
Okay.
What's ideal? Well-drained, sandy loam soil
Okay,
with a very specific pH range.
so specific.
And the groundwater level can't be too high either.
Right, so picky. What about the weather?
Warmth and humidity. Gotta have it, especially when it's growing season.
All right, so it likes it warm and cozy.
Exactly.
Got it. So speaking of picky,
Yeah.
what about here, the Netherlands?
Ah, good question.
Can it even handle our climate?
That's what this RAP 2021 Paulownia Sultan Nederland report is all about.
Okay.
And it turns out the average temperatures here,
Yeah.
they're actually lower than what the Paulownia would really like.
Oh, no, so it's a no-go then. No fairy tale forest for us.
Hold on, not so fast.
Okay.
The lower temperatures are definitely a challenge,
Yeah.
but the real threat, especially for your young Paulownia trees,
Oh.
is frost.
Oh, right, our winters.
Those chilly Dutch winters, they can be a real problem for these trees.
So it's like we got to protect them from the frost, but also make sure they get enough warmth to grow big and strong.
Exactly. Finding that balance is key.
Like a delicate dance.
That's a good way to put it.
All right, so let's say, just for a minute, that we do figure it out.
Okay.
We get these Paulownias to grow happy and healthy here.
I like it.
What then? What do we do with all that wood?
That's the exciting part.
Right, I've heard it's good for timber, biomass, but like, is it all hype, or is there something really special about Paulownia wood?
Well, this Paulownia plantage business plan we have, it talks about 2 main uses, timber and biomass.
Okay, classic combo.
Right, but the wood itself, it's pretty unique.
How so?
It's lightweight, but also super strong,
Whoa, both.
and it dries really fast.
Really? That's interesting.
Makes it really versatile.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of things can you actually make with it?
Oh, lots of things. RAP 2021 Paulownia Tilton Nederland goes into detail.
Okay.
Furniture, musical instruments,
Wow.
even surfboards because it's so light and strong.
Surfboards. That's cool.
And then there's paper, biofuel.
Really?
Yeah, quite a...
So it's like from surfboards to biofuel? That's pretty impressive.
It is.
But wait, there's more, right?
What else have you heard?
Something about it being fire resistant.
You're right. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Makes it really interesting for certain types of construction.
So it's like the superhero of timber.
Haha, I like that.
Strong, versatile, fire resistant. Is it like a super powered version of poplar wood or something?
It's definitely comparable to poplar in some ways.
Yeah.
But there are some key differences.
Okay, like what?
The properties are a bit different.
Hmm.
And importantly, the market value.
Ooh, so it's worth more.
Paulownia tends to command a higher price, potentially much higher.
All right, now we're talking. So we've got higher prices, versatile uses, rapid growth.
Mm-hmm.
This Paulownia is sounding more and more like a gold mine.
It's got potential.
What about the biomass side of things? I was reading about this Paulownia professional company.
Yeah.
And they were making some pretty bold claims about how much you can yield.
Like how much?
They were saying up to 350 cubic meters per hectare
Wow.
in just 7 years.
That's a lot.
Right. So I'm thinking, is this the next big thing in biomass?
It's worth looking into.
But to really get a sense of where it stands,
Yeah.
we got to compare it to what we already use for biomass here.
You're thinking about willow.
Willow. Is that the big one in the Netherlands?
It is. It's a real powerhouse when it comes to biomass production here.
Really? I always thought willow was more for baskets and,
Picturesque scenery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So how do they compare, numbers-wise?
So willow, with our well-established cultivation system here,
Yeah.
it can produce around 10 tons of dry matter
Okay.
per hectare annually.
10 tons for willow. Got it. What about our superstar, Paulownia?
Well, with Paulownia, it's a bit trickier because, those cooler temperatures we were talking about
Right.
and the frost risk, they're factors.
Yeah.
So realistically, even in the best conditions, we might be looking at a yield closer to 16 tons per hectare.
So 16 for Paulownia versus 10 for willow.
Yeah,
It is more.
it is.
But is it enough?
That's the question.
Right? Like, is it worth all the extra effort, the potential risks of growing Paulownia here?
Especially when willow is already so well established.
Exactly. It's something to think about.
It is.
But before we get lost in the world of yields and profits and all that,
Good point.
let's shift gears a bit. Talk about the environmental side of things.
The impact.
Yeah, because growing this fast, is that actually good for the environment?
Interesting question.
Or could it cause problems?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I like interesting.
Because Paulownia, it could be both.
Both.
A friend and a foe to the environment.
Whoa, double-edged sword. I'm listening.
It all depends on how we approach its cultivation.
Okay, so tell me about this environmental balancing act, the good and the bad.
On the positive side, Paulownia can actually make the soil better.
Really?
Yeah, its deep roots, they help with soil structure, prevent erosion,
That's good.
and the leaves, packed with nutrients,
Wow.
and they decompose quickly, adding organic matter back into the soil.
So it's like a natural fertilizer.
In a way, yeah.
Cool. Anything else?
Some sources even say Paulownia can act as a natural nitrogen barrier.
What does that mean?
So it prevents excess nitrogen from leaching into the surrounding areas.
Wow, that's amazing.
And we can't forget about the pollinators.
Right, bees and butterflies and all that.
Exactly. They love Paulownia flowers.
So it's beautiful and good for biodiversity.
Exactly.
All right, so it sounds like it has some serious eco-credentials.
It does.
But you mentioned a dark side, too.
I did.
What's the catch?
The catch is Paulownia grows so fast, produces so many seeds, it has the potential to become invasive.
Oh, invasive species. That's not good.
It's a valid concern.
Are we talking like taking over and pushing out native plants kind of invasive?
That's the worry.
Yikes.
And RAP 2021 Paulownia Tilton Nederland actually compares it to another tree,
Oh.
the Ailanthus altissima, or as it's more commonly known, the tree of heaven.
Tree of heaven doesn't sound so bad.
The name might sound nice, but
Yeah.
it's a notorious invasive species here in Europe.
Oh, no.
And Paulownia, it shares some of its characteristics.
Like what?
The rapid growth, those tiny seeds that can spread easily.
So it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Looks pretty and grows fast, but then wreaks havoc on the ecosystem.
It's not quite that dramatic, but
But we need to be careful.
we do. And we're already seeing wild Paulownia trees popping up.
Yeah.
Yeah, mainly in urban areas.
So it's not just a case of plant it and forget it.
Definitely not.
We got to be mindful of the consequences.
Absolutely. Proceed with caution.
So it's a real balancing act, harnessing the potential, but making sure we don't unleash an ecological disaster.
It's about finding that sweet spot.
Right.
Responsible cultivation is key.
Got it. So lots to think about with this Paulownia tree.
It's a fascinating one, that's for sure.
Right. So we've talked about the Paulownia tree's potential, its growth, its uses, the environmental side of things.
A lot to consider.
It is. But let's be real.
Yeah.
Growing trees, it's not all about saving the planet or surfing on fancy wood boards.
It's true. There's a financial aspect, too.
Right. So let's get down to business.
Let's talk money.
If someone wants to set up a Paulownia plantation, what are we talking about investment-wise? Is this a get-rich-quick scheme or more of a long-term thing?
Well, these project proposals we have, they give us some good insights.
Okay, which ones?
The Paulownia Plantage Business Plan and the Paulownia Plantage Landgoed de Utrecht.
All right, so what do they say? What kind of money are we talking about up front?
Let's say you're starting with 1 hectare
Okay.
and you're planning for an 8-year growth cycle. Just for the trees themselves, you're looking at around 16,000 euros.
16,000 just for the baby trees.
Each sapling costs about 20 euros.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty big chunk of change right there.
It is.
What else do we need to factor in?
Well, there's the administrative stuff, setting up the business.
Right, making it official.
That's another 1,500 euros.
So we're at like 17,500 before we even plan anything?
Yeah, and that's just the beginning.
There's got to be more.
Oh yeah, ongoing expenses.
Like what?
Land lease, for one.
Okay, how much is that?
Can be around 2,000 euros per hectare per year.
Wow. Okay, so that's every year.
Every year, and then general business expenses, another 3,000 or so annually.
So we've got the fixed costs.
Mm-hmm.
But what about actually taking care of the trees?
The real work.
Irrigation, pest control, fertilizer, all that.
You're right. Those costs can vary.
Depending on.
The weather, pests, how you manage the plantation.
Right, so you got to be on top of things.
Both proposals really emphasize that.
Regular inspections, maintenance, all that.
Pruning, weed control, disease prevention.
It's not just planting a tree and walking away.
Definitely not. It's a hands-on business.
A long-term relationship with your trees.
Haha, that's a good way to put it.
So we've talked about the costs,
Mm-hmm.
but let's talk about the potential rewards.
The profits.
Exactly. This Paulownia professional company mentioned some pretty high prices for the wood.
They did.
Upwards of 800 euros per cubic meter.
For certain types, yeah.
That's a lot more appealing than just firewood.
It is, but there are factors that influence the price.
Like what? Is it just about the quality of the wood?
Well, it's like anything, supply and demand, and the type of wood, what it's going to be used for.
Makes sense. So high-end furniture versus biomass, different prices.
Exactly.
So it's not just about growing the trees, it's about understanding the market.
Knowing how to maximize the value of your harvest.
That's interesting.
It is, and that's where things like processing and certification come in.
We'll get to that a little later, but for now, back to the environment.
Yeah.
We talked about the potential for Paulownia to become invasive.
We did.
How serious is that threat, really?
Yeah.
And what can we do about it?
RAP 2021 Paulownia de Set Ilte Nederland addresses that.
Okay, what do they say?
They say, while it hasn't been as invasive in Europe as in, say, the U.S., there's still reason to be cautious.
Because of?
The rapid growth, the seed production.
Those tiny seeds, right?
Exactly. They could spread, outcompete native plants.
Disrupt the ecosystem?
Potentially, yeah.
And right now it's mostly in urban areas?
Yeah.
But it could spread.
It could, so we need to be smart about where we plant.
It's no just scattering seeds everywhere.
Not a good idea.
What can we do then?
Well, REP 2021 Paulownia-Tilten Nederland suggests careful site selection.
Okay, so choosing the right location.
Avoiding areas where it could spread easily,
Like,
near natural areas, waterways.
makes sense.
And then there's the option of using sterile cultivars.
Sterile cultivar.
Yeah, so they might produce seeds.
No,
Seeds aren't viable, they can't grow.
So it's like you get the benefits of the tree.
Without the risk of it spreading uncontrollably.
That's pretty cool. So we can potentially have the best of both worlds.
We can.
But even with all that, we still need to keep an eye on things.
Absolutely. Monitoring is key.
Early detection, right?
If we catch it early, we can prevent it from becoming a big problem.
So responsible cultivation, understanding the risks, taking action.
That's the key takeaway here.
No room for complacency.
None at all.
Okay, so we've talked costs, potential profits, the environmental side.
What else is there?
Well, there's the whole world of regulations.
Yes. The rules of the game.
Maybe not the most exciting topic.
But important nonetheless.
Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. We've been exploring the Paulownia tree, its potential, and the challenges that come with it.
And now we're going to tackle the legal side of things.
Regulations, fun times.
Right. Maybe not the most glamorous topic.
But important.
Absolutely.
Especially here in the Netherlands.
Things can get pretty specific here.
So what do aspiring Paulownia planters need to know about the law? What are the hurdles?
Well, first things first, the zoning plan.
Zoning plan.
Each municipality has its own plan.
Okay.
They lay out how land can be used.
So like, what can be built where?
More like, what can be planted where?
So if I want to turn my backyard into a Paulownia paradise,
Haha, you might need permission.
got to check with the municipality first.
They'll make sure it fits the zoning plan for your area.
Okay, so it's not just about zoning, right?
No, there are also regulations about changing the function of agricultural land.
Change of function. What does that mean?
So let's say you have a piece of land, you're using it for farming. If you decide to plant a lot of trees there,
Like a whole bunch of Paulownias.
more than 50 trees per hectare, to be exact,
Okay.
the government might step in and say, nope, that's forest now.
Seriously, they just change it like that.
Well, they reclassify it.
Okay, but why does that matter? Trees are trees, right?
It's more than just a label.
What do you mean?
It can affect the landowner financially.
Oh no, how so?
For example, they might lose agricultural subsidies.
That's not good.
And their manure application rights could change too.
So planting trees can actually have some serious financial consequences.
It can. It's not always a simple thing.
So zoning, land reclassification, anything else?
Oh, yeah, we got to talk about the Forestry Act.
Okay, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down for Paulownia?
Well, Paulownia, it's not native to the Netherlands.
Right, we talked about that.
So under Dutch law, it's considered an exotic species.
And that means,
It means there are some extra things to think about.
like the invasiveness issue we talked about.
Exactly. So the Forestry Act, or wet nature bescherming as it's called here,
Catchy.
it has rules about planting exotic species.
Okay, so what are the rules?
Well, one important thing is that you can't plant exotics that could harm Natura 2000 areas.
Natura 2000, what's that?
Basically, they're protected areas
Okay,
all across the EU.
so important habitats, rare species.
Exactly. They're trying to protect these areas.
Makes sense. Keep them healthy and thriving.
And because Paulownia could be invasive,
Yeah.
we need to be careful about planting it near these Natura 2000 areas.
Okay, so we've got zoning plans, land reclassification, the Forestry Act, Natura 2000.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It's like a legal obstacle course for Paulownia growers.
You can feel that way sometimes.
So how do they navigate all this?
Communication is key.
Talk to the right people.
Exactly. The municipality, the Netherlands Food and Consumer Product Safety Authority.
They'll know the specifics.
They can provide guidance, help assess the risks.
So lots of paperwork, lots of consultations before you even plant a tree.
It's all part of responsible cultivation.
Making sure we're not harming the environment in the process.
That's the goal.
And speaking of responsible cultivation,
Yes.
there's one more thing.
What's that?
Certification.
Ah, yes. Certification.
Like a gold star for being a good Paulownia grower.
Uh-huh. Not quite.
But it shows you're doing things right.
That you're managing your forest sustainably.
Okay, so how does that work?
There are organizations that do this, like the Forest Stewardship Council
FSC, I've heard of them.
and the Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification.
PEFC.
They have standards for sustainable forest management.
So you get certified if you meet those standards.
Right, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
These certification schemes, they often have specific rules about invasive species.
Uh-oh. So that could be a problem for Paulownia growers.
It could. The FSC, for example, they say you need to prevent invasive species from messing things up.
So even if you get through all the other legal hurdles, certification could still be a challenge.
It's definitely something to be aware of.
So much to think about.
It is. But that's why we wanted to cover all this.
So people understand the whole picture.
Not just the exciting parts, but the legal and regulatory side, too.
It's all connected.
It is.
Well, we've explored the Paulownia tree from all angles now.
We have. Its potential, its challenges.
The economic side, the ecological side, the legal side.
It's a fascinating tree with a lot to offer.
But it's up to each individual to decide.
To decide if it's the right choice for them.
Weigh the benefits, consider the risks.
And remember to be responsible.
Absolutely. Tread lightly on this planet of ours.
That's the most important thing.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of the Paulownia tree.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep exploring and asking those tough questions.
And stay curious.